Nagara is a quiet, introverted high school student. He spends most of his time alone and is too detached and bored of everything around him. After a sudden storm during a hot summer day at school, he, along with many other students of his class, are transported to a surreal world where physics and reality holds no meaning at all. When the drifting occurred, Nagara was on the rooftop of the school with Nozomi, a girl who has recently transferred to his school. The school campus has been floating in a void of darkness for a week now. Also, most of the students have developed different supernatural powers in this realm. Nagara is often followed around by Nozomi. They are hanging around by the school playground trying to understand what is happening, where they are, and how are they going to get out of this place. There you go, I just described the exact plot, what it would be like if Inception made babies with X-Men Mutant Academy. Nozomi tells Nagara that she can see a light in the endless void, and she believes that might be the way outside. She asks Nagara about his superpower, but he has no idea what ability he attained, and besides, he is too uninterested to even try figuring it out. Nagara's phone beeps. He sees a notification of a group chat invite. Apparently, the cool kids of the class are trying to form a student council to maintain order in this realm. The group was led by Hoshi, a short guy with a mysterious smile. His powers is to see the possible future with distinctiveness. He is able to materialize images and visions of the future in other people's minds. In short, he plays with people's minds. The group also includes a girl named Pony with a long ponytail and a big baseball player wearing a cap, named Cap. That's some brutal effort from the naming committee. Cap is appointed as the leader of the council, and he's to punish everyone who goes against the rules of the school in that realm. Asakaze, another student of the class, confronts the council. He is against the formation of the council and destroys school property using his powers. Asakaze has developed the ability to control the space around him and manipulate it to some extent. He's pretty much like Satoru Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen without the white hair and personality, as Asakaze has a terrible personality. As destroying school property went against the rules of the school, he is punished by Cap. Cap imposes a penalty on Asakaze and a black cross mark appears on his face. He is given to solve a never-ending division problem as punishment, and he is bound to act without his will. Later, Nozomi is also punished by Cap for throwing away a mobile phone that he offered her. A penalty is imposed on her and a cross forms on her face too. As a punishment, she is to fill the boards of the class with the digit 1. Rajdhani meets Nagara and others in the classroom where Nozomi is being punished. If the name's not enough to guess, Rajdhani is an Indian boy who's too smart for his age, and his ability is to create incredibly useful gadgets. He's the Stephen Hawking of our story, but without wheels. He's so smart, even Siri asks him for advice. Rajdhani goes on to explain his research and findings regarding the world they are in. They have been in the state of drifting for a week now, but time seems to be static around them. However, they still feel hungry and they need to sleep to restore their energy. The darkness of the void is another mystery that's hard to solve. No matter how much he tries, he can't see what's outside the void, but they can still see everything inside the world. Asakaze and his followers start a rebellion against the recently elected student council. They distort the school building into distorted shapes and trap Hoshi, Pony, and Cap with their abilities. They exclaim that the student council is nothing but tyrannical and they don't want to follow the rules and carry out boring tasks. Pony teleports herself along with Hoshi and Cap by using her teleportation ability. She could teleport any object she sets her eyes on to any place she wishes by simply replacing the objects. The rebels are punished by Cap, but somehow Asakaze is not affected by the penalty. Meanwhile, Nozomi runs towards the direction of the light she keeps mentioning about and jumps off a ledge to hug the darkness. However, Nagara manages to seize her just in time. But the railing snaps and they both start embracing the darkness. All of a sudden, the world around them changes. The pitch-black surroundings are replaced by a clear blue tropical sky. They fell into the sea instead. The school building, along with all the other students, is floating in the sea now. They see an island ahead with a huge mountain in the middle. Everyone was confused by what just happened but liked the change of the surroundings anyway. The sky-high settings quickly changed to the Blue Lagoon it seems. Nagara and his class take shelter on the island, which they named the Ant Island. The island is completely different from the previous realm, with only their school building floating in a dark void. On the surface, the island looks like any other tropical island from the real world. But strangely, everything on the island replenishes on its own. They explore the island and have started to function as a small community, with everyone carrying out specific tasks. Nagara gets the task to fetch the necessary goods from Mizuho, a dark-haired, moody but frank girl. She has 3 cats named Tora, Gen, and Sakura. Her ability is a very special and useful one. With the help of her cats, she can manifest anything using Nyamazon. It's more like if Doraemon and Amazon had babies, you'd get Nyamazon. She lives in a big castle deep inside the forest, spending her time manifesting the goods she is asked to order by other students. The student starts to notice that things are getting burned by a blue flame out of nowhere. Nagara suggested that Mizuho might have something to do with it, as she's the one who manifested everything. Without giving it a second thought, all of the students confronted Mizuho and asked her why she was preparing for a campfire cooking club. Nagara felt bad for her as she was being cornered on the basis of his assumptions and not facts. Mizuho gets enraged by such harsh treatment and makes it rain money on the island that gets burned when the students pick them up. The whole island gets burned by this and is later replenished by Asakaze. Remember the smart kid of the class, Rajdhani? He is able to figure out the real reason behind the burning of materials, which has nothing to do with Mizuho. He shares the information with Nagara and Nozomi, who goes to meet Mizuho. He explains to Nagara how only the things exchanged for free gets burned, and the ones exchanged for other goods do not catch fire. He also developed a solution for the problem by creating a digital currency named Horyu Coin for exchanging goods. Please welcome Rajdhani Bitcoin. We definitely need more imaginary money in this absurd universe. Mizuho's name is cleared now, and she also apologizes for the money incident, as she did that on purpose. She also gives Nagara a straw hat for bringing one of her cats back to her. More weeks pass by and the group is still stuck on the island. Nagara, along with Nozomi, Rajdhani, and Asakaze, are in charge of the exploration. During their time on the island, they have been able to find several other worlds like the island and the Dark Void, each having different rules and environments, and each world being weirder than the former. It's mostly Nagara finding these worlds and Rajdhani trying to understand the existence and connection between these worlds. Meanwhile, some of the students are starting to turn into black stone statues one after the other. With the increasing number of such cases, the student council decides to carry out an investigation. Mizuho is asked to carry out the investigation and she appoints Nagara to be her assistant. The duo sets out to investigate the places on the island where the disappearing students were last seen. Although the statues had no movement, they could hear sounds coming out from them. One was playing video games and the other was apparently struggling in a battle against balls, and balls were clearly winning. While they were on the venture, Mizuho admits that she could use her ability of Nyamazon even before they ended up in this world. She believes that it was not just her who could do so, but there probably were other students too. This could have been the only reason for the paranormal occurrences that were happening at their school days before the drifting actually took place. After some research and thinking, they both concluded that the reason behind the disappearances must be bullying or neglect, as the students who disappeared had few to no friends at all. Their existence was not acknowledged by others, thus leading to their turning into statues. Who needs friends when you have an internet connection and tissues? The duo, after checking on another similar statue of a missing student, gets transported into a different world. This world has infinitely long backdrops in all directions. There are room-like spaces inside the world separated by backdrops. They find the missing students there. They are all busy with their own activities and are surprised that the duo was able to find them. One student was busy playing video games on a computer while one was playing with his bells. Dumbbells. There was another girl with a weird-looking hat who was busy knitting similar weird caps. Everyone was busy with their own work and were actually enjoying their time there. The duo reports this to Pony and Rajdhani. With the help of Rajdhani's gadgets, the duo disintegrates the world of black drops and brings back the missing students. They use a huge fan-like gadget first to blow the black drops, and then other hand-like gadgets lift the black drops high in the sky. Nagara releases a dog-like gadget at the black drops floating in the sky. The gadget hits the black drops with tremendous force, tearing them into multiple pieces, thus disintegrating the world of black drops. Those poor kids thought they were actually thriving in their amazing virtual reality, only to discover they forgot to pay the electricity bill. Now it's canned beans and flashlight parties for them. The fact that Nagara is present wherever a new world is found has made others suspect that he is surely linked to it. Although Nagara is yet to realize this himself, others around him start to suspect that he can probably take them out of this world with his ability. The students are all gathered around a pool-like structure where, instead of water, there is a pitch-black void in the center. People are jumping off a ledge into the void for fun. It sounds so familiar. No, wait, it's called the 2024 presidential election. Nagara is next in line, but he is too timid and hesitates to jump. Asakaze pushes him from behind and he is about to fall straight onto a rock on his face. But right before hitting the rock, Nagara involuntarily uses his ability and changes the world around him. And instead of the rock, he lands on a baseball pad. The students are also transported to a baseball pitch-like world, for instance. Now, everyone was sure that Nagara was the chosen one who could help them get out of this world. Nagara, accompanied by Mizuho and Nozumi, goes to play baseball with Cap. Cap has built a baseball pitch nearby to play during his free time. Nagara admits to having played baseball before, but he is terrible at it now. Even Nozumi hits the ball better than him. Hope she doesn't play with someone else's balls. Cap then goes on to narrate the story of the imaginary apes who have been playing baseball on that very pitch. He talks about the glorious Monkey League where grade A players have played. He also tells the story about a giant blue ape with one hand who, in spite of having a single hand, loved the game and was resilient to play it. It's like the rise of the Planet of the Apes, but instead of violence, the apes choose baseball. Nagara and others are deeply invested in the tale of the apes and are curious to see the apes for real. To this, Cap tells them that the apes can only be seen with the help of Ace, who has taught the apes to play the game in the first place. Ace is another student of the group who is quite popular in the real world. His baseball skills are highly impressive and Nagara used to be his teammate in the past. But without any special ability in the drifting world, he is often belittled. The group meets Ace and expresses their wish to see the baseball-playing apes. Ace shows them a flashlight which looked ordinary at first, but he confirmed that it'll help them see the apes. When asked to lend them the flashlight, Ace put forward a challenge. He challenged Nagara that if anyone of the trio could hit the ball he pitched, the flashlight would be theirs. But if they failed to hit the ball, Nagara will have to take everyone back to the real world with his ability. Rule number 1 of winning: never accept a challenge from someone who looks like Sylvester Stallone in anime and has a blondie girlfriend. Trust me, it's a trap. The trio, Nagara, Mizuho, and Nozumi, trained for a day under Cap while Cap continued to narrate the story of the great apes. On the day of the challenge, in spite of all the training, none of the three could hit the balls pitched by Ace and they all lost the challenge. When Nagara is batting, for a split second, the surroundings change and everyone finds themselves in a deserted baseball pitch. He also gets visions of the apes and finds the one-handed blue ape batting next to him. He's able to see the images of the tale narrated by Cap through his own eyes. But the challenge and the story of the apes changed something in Nagara. He is always ready to give up on hope and is never keen on working hard. From the tale of the apes, he is inspired to be more resilient. Since he lost the challenge, Nagara is asked to transport everyone to the real world by using his ability. Everyone gathers on the beach and Nagara tries his best to change the world around him. But to everyone's dismay, after several unsuccessful attempts, he expresses that he is not being able to go where he wants, that he does not have any control over his ability and cannot go back to the real world. Miss Aki, their teacher, appears out of nowhere. She's got that PhD in turning chalkboards into whiteboards, fancy straight A's, and front row seats at night. Miss Aki is the goddess of education, but straight from OnlyFans. She had a sweet personality in the real world, but here she is shouting and screaming at the kids. She goes on to say that they are never going back to the real world. It is impossible now, and she is there to play the role of God in their world. She also announces that they have ended up in the drifting world because some students have used their abilities in the real world before the drifting. Nagara is trying his best to control his ability, but he only ends up in different worlds no matter how many times he tries to go back to the real world. All the worlds he discovers have different sets of rules and purposes. Miss Aki's words have brainwashed most of the students, and different smaller groups have formed within the students. Knowing about Asakaze's rebellious nature and powerful ability, Miss Aki decides to pick him as her favorite student. She preaches that he can indeed be the god of the floating realm by generously lending him 2 massive cushions to rest his head. Asakaze and some others supported Miss Aki and blames Nagara for the situation they were in. They blamed Nagara for faking that he was not able to control his abilities. They doubt that, as he was a nobody in the real world. He brought everyone to the drifting world where he is being preached for his ability. Hoshi and the student council are against this opinion and are trying their best to defend Nagara. But the majority of the students were sure about their assumptions. Led by Miss Aki, the group of students cornered Nagara. He is blamed for ruining their future by bringing them into the drifting world. They are furious and demand Nagara to take them back to the real world. With so many enraged people turning against him, Nagara can't take it anymore and creates an alternate world like the island without those students. Rajdani, Mizuho, and Nozumi are the only ones besides him in this new world. Witnessing this, Rajdani realized that Nagara's real ability was to create new worlds rather than being to transport to new worlds. It was Nagara who replenished the burned island a few weeks ago by creating a new world. 2 more months have passed on the island. Miss Aki is running a summer camp and training the students supporting her. Asakaze is still her favorite student and she continues lending him her massive cushions, telling him to believe that he is meant to rule the drifting world. Do hit the like button if you want me to be the dictator of Japan. Free cushions for every male subscriber. Apologies ladies, the fun has been temporarily postponed. Nagara and his group are still trying to explore new worlds and connecting dots to go back to the real world. On one such exploration, Mizuho comes across a huge stray dog that can talk. He introduces himself as Yamabiko and tells them that he has been living in the drifting world for 5,000 years now and was actually a human before. This shocked the group. He explains that, like physics and reality, time too holds no meaning in this realm. He also tells them that in real world, he joined their high school after Nagara and his class had graduated. But in this world, they exist in the same place at the same time. Nagara and Rajdani are now in a world that looks like a movie theater. The films playing on the big screen are all in Nagara's point of view. The archives of the theater holds thousands of similar film rolls of Nagara's memories. Rajdani thinks out a brilliant plan. He explains to Nagara how they can probably go back to the real world by editing the films in this world. Gone are those days of slaying dragons. Time to gather an army of video editors and unleash the power of Premiere Pro. He explains the plan to other students, and Hoshi is creating an arc for everyone to travel to the real world. Everyone is hoping to go back to reality as Rajdani and Nagara make the preparations. Hoshi's arc takes off and Rajdani and Nagara are in the movie theater world. The day of their graduation is about to be played on the big screen and Rajdani is getting ready to edit everyone into the film using one of his gadgets. The arc travels through a space that looks like a bridge between other drifting worlds. As the film starts playing, the students end up in the film. But to their surprise and disappointment, they realize they are nothing but copies of themselves in the film. They cannot interact with each other and cannot interfere in the happenings of the real world inside the film. In the middle of this, Nozomi realizes that she is dead in the real world by the time of their graduation. Students of her class are placing flowers on her seat in the classroom. The headmaster of the school enters the scene, claiming to be the god of their world, bringing everyone back to the drifting world. Hoshi's arc crashes back on the End Island, and the students are utterly disappointed. Nagara is held accountable for the whole incident of drifting. The Council of Elite Drifters, called the Beatles, sends out Bat, another powerful drifter, to punish Nagara for his actions. Wait, the Beatles? I bet the chairman of the Fancy Pants Club was in desperate need of a backup singer. The drifting realm is much bigger and complex than Nagara imagines it to be. And the people who get drifted are all students of the same school, trapped inside for ages. Since time functions in completely different ways in this realm, all the students from his high school, regardless of their time of existence in the real world, exist in this drifting realm all at once. Nagara sees a horizontal bar when he is in a solo venture on the island. He decides to play a bit with it. He hangs on the bar and tries to swing his body. As he swings on the bar, the laws of physics decides to take a vacation, leaving Nagara to fall into the sky before losing consciousness. Nagara sees a dark figure of a person sitting on the bar. When he opens his eyes to a voice trying to wake him up, he finds himself in a different world. To all the fellas out there, save that Tarzan impression for the proper jungle, y'all. Bat has trapped Nagara in an inverted world where the students are under the delusion that if they construct the Tower of Babel, they'd reach the gates of heaven one day. The worker student who calls himself 2 Stars befriends Nagara as he sees himself in him. Nagara is unable to use his abilities to create a world in the inverted world and is forced to work as a laborer, carrying blocks of cement to the bottom of the tower. The world of the inverted tower has different ways. The students feast on food that looks like worms and live out their days working in the construction side of the tower. One day, Nagara goes out for a hike with his new friend. They both climbed a mountain and decided to take a rest in a cave. Inside the cave, 2 Stars notice the ceiling of the cave shining like a night sky. He is mesmerized by the view and reaches out for the star-like shining objects. But the shining objects are actually the arms of a carnivorous plant-like thing which grabs him and finishes him. Nagara is deeply affected by this loss. Death in this realm was not naturally possible, but people still cease to exist. Nagara continues to stay in the inverted world as a worker, but he realizes the world was in fact a lie. When he chooses to act against the rules of the world by carrying the blocks upwards, he is summoned by the in-charge of the inverted world. The moment he confronts the in-charge, he speaks against him, claiming that he knows that the world is simply upside down and the heavens they promised to reach is in fact the other way. He is then transported out of that world back to the End Island. He then meets Bat, who is literally a person with a closed umbrella covering his torso, hanging upside down a horizontal bar like a bat. On meeting Nagara, he asks him if he remembers him. By any chance, is he Bruce Wayne? Nagara denies knowing him, but in the real world, Bat has indeed met Nagara when he was still too young. Bat used to hang upside down on a horizontal bar in the playground all the time. One day, Nagara was passing by with his mother when he saw the boy hanging upside down. He remarked that he was hanging there like a bat. Nagara, Mizuho, and Nozomi, along with Mizuho's cats and Yamabiko, are the only ones left on the island. The students following Hoshi rebuild their arc and go on a journey to find a new world to settle in. Rajdhani too left the island after bidding farewell to his friends on a journey to explore the drifting worlds. Meanwhile, Azakaze and others have left the island with Miss Aki for a summer camp led by her. Can't blame them for ditching the island. I mean, who can resist comfy cushions? Yamabiko shares his story with Nagara and Mizuho. As a human, Yamabiko had a tendency to be irritable. He left his group and was traveling from one world to other when one day he found himself in a peaceful world similar to the End Island. He was drowning in the sea when a white-haired girl named Kotama saved him by grabbing his arm. She was the person everyone in that world looked up to, as she had a special ability to control everything. She was the god of that world. At first, Yamabiko did not want to stay there. He even tried to escape that world. But Kotama convinced him to stay and he couldn't help but fall for her endless kindness. More like he decided to stay behind and join her army of simps. He was happy to stay by her side, but sadly, their happiness was short-lived. A mysterious plague hit that peaceful world and the inhabitants were suffering from red crystal-like tumors growing on their body. The tumors were killing the people slowly, but even in their hardest times, they hoped that Kotama would be able to save them. She too was infected by the plague, and in spite of having so much power, she failed to cure herself and the others. Yamabiko was the only one who did not get affected by the plague. It was during that time when he turned into a dog. The process wasn't a slow or gradual one, but an instant one. When Kotama asked him what he could do for her, out of love and admiration, Yamabiko replied that he could do anything and be anything for her, thus turning into a dog. Bruh, literally made the statement, all men are dogs true, simp. The student found a mysterious person inside a cave in that world one day. He too was infected by the same plague. Everyone believed that he was the one who brought the plague to their world and wanted to kill him for good. But Kotama was too kind for that. Instead, she took care of that person like she did for the others. People were starting to succumb to the plague and were dying one after the other. Someone reported that the mysterious person was nowhere to be seen and there was a large red crystal in the place where he was last seen. Kotama went to that place only to meet the real form of that person. The person introduced himself as War. He offered her a badge, claiming it to be the badge he got for killing 1,000 people. Kotama was disgusted by him and asked him to leave her world. To which he replied he'd only leave the place when everyone dies, as he was War, the destroyer of worlds, the killer of gods. His words were true and everyone in that world died one after the other. Kotama too died in front of Yamabiko and he was the only one alive in that world. Yamabiko was deeply affected by her death and was furious at War. In the end, Yamabiko confronted War, inquiring why he was the only one left behind. War explained his powers cannot affect the people who are at war in themselves. War also explains how Kotama's kindness was what led to her and her people's demise. The moral of the story: stop being too kind. Yamabiko spent the next 5,000 years hiding in different worlds until he met Nagara and his group. Nagara was interested in the character of War and he knew he'll have to face him someday. Nagara and his group travels to a new world in search of a way to get back to reality. While most of the students have already given up on going back, the person who initially was characterized by his attitude of giving up too early is the one still resilient on finding a way. Our guy surely has had some serious character development. The tale of the baseball playing apes had hit Nagara hard, completely changing him. The world they enter now looks like a glacier with ice covering the lands. The sole purpose of the existence of this world is to witness the duel of two childish twins, So and Seiji. The reason behind their duels and endless rivalry is the number of hair strands each have on their head. So claims to have one hair strand more than his twin brother. He claims to have 11,635 hair strands, while his brother had 11,634 hair strands. I suggest they should consider a game of hair pulling showdown as an alternate strategy. Asakaze and the others along with Miss Aki are also present in this world. Miss Aki reveals that for Asakaze to become invincible in the drifting world, he'd need the help of the ability of the twins. Nagara witnesses the duel of the twins, which was a sumo match this time. The ability of the twins is to reverse everything. They use this ability so that they can keep on dueling for eternity. This time, Seiji had to taste defeat and he retreats to his camp where Miss Aki hands him a special gun to use in their next duel. Sakura, one of Mizuho's cats, is caught in a trap set by Seiji and taken away. Meanwhile, Nozomi and Asakaze have a fight in front of everyone. Nagara goes after Nozomi to console her, who stormed outside after the fight. It's more than evident that our guy likes Nozomi and so does Asakaze. But while Asakaze is playing the bad boy role, Nagara fits into the soft boy role perfectly. Sadly, girls only end up liking the bad boys. I guess he'll just have to try harder to be a d***. In the next duel, the twins use guns. Seiji uses the gun Miss Aki gave him and handed his brother a similar gun before the match. Both the brothers shoot at each other and Saw falls to the ground as he is shot right in the chest. The match ends, but they are not able to use their ability to reverse the world, and as a result, Saw gets wiped out for good. Having no purpose in life now, Seiji wipes himself out too using the same gun. Poor brothers simply wanted to duel peacefully for eternity until evil cushions arrived. Sakura was about to be sacrificed by Seiji but is saved in time by Nagara. Miss Aki knew that the cats had to do something with Mizuho's ability of manifestation. After the incident, everyone leaves on their own separate ways. Asakaze and the rest follows Miss Aki in her school bus, and Nagara and his friends head back to the Ant Island. Tsubasa, a girl from the other group, bids farewell to Nozomi and promises to stay in contact. Nagara and Mizuho are trying to understand the abilities of Mizuho's cats. Yamabiko, on their previous journey to the world of twins, has heard the cats talking about their abilities. The things that the cats manifest on Mizuho's orders are actually copies of the things in the real world brought to the drifting worlds. Nagara knew that Mizuho could use the ability of Nyamazon even before they got transported to the drifting realm. So they suspected that the reason behind them being trapped in the drifting worlds could possibly be the cats. They were mere copies of their real selves of the real world brought to this realm by none other than the cats. Time didn't function normally in the drifting worlds as the cats were to be separated from Mizuho in the real world. They brought her to this world where they could be with her for eternity. Meanwhile, Nozomi goes to meet Tsubasa in another world. Tsubasa had the ability to read everyone's thoughts, but she had kept her ability a secret as it could alarm others. She liked Asakaze very much, and that was the sole reason why she joined Miss Aki's summer camp. She also knew that he loved Nozomi as she could hear his thoughts out loud whenever Nozomi was around. She believed that only Nozomi could fix his dumb attitude, and Miss Aki was a bad influence on him as she believes women with big cushions are evil. But hey, sometimes being wicked isn't such a bad gig, so spare poor Asakaze folks. Remember, having a comfy spot to lay your troubled noggin on is definitely worth the mischief. And Asakaze was not just following Miss Aki's advice, after all, he seemed to like the Oreo she had. Wait, am I simping Miss Aki too much? Anyways, the summer camp has officially ended, and Asakaze is asked by the headmaster and Miss Aki to fight and kill War, the destroyer of the drifting worlds. If he can finish War, the drifting worlds will be at peace and he will be invincible. Nozomi and Tsubasa join Miss Aki and Asakaze on their quest to find and kill War. Nozomi disagreed at first, but Tsubasa convinced her to come. They are trekking in a rugged world filled with canyons. Miss Aki realizes that Tsubasa could in fact read minds. Asakaze is embarrassed when he knows about it. On their journey, they come across a boy who seemed like he was in a constant state of falling, although his body was actually floating over the ground with no movement. Asakaze uses his ability to arrest this student, and the body of the student disappears and turns into a gun. Nozomi was standing right next to that student. When Asakaze used his ability, she fell off the lid into the endless pit and a compass was left behind in her place. It almost seemed like it was Asakaze who pushed her as his body was frozen when she was falling. He could do nothing to help her. Back on the island, Nagara and Mizuho holds a funeral for Nozomi. They arrange everything properly using Mizuho's ability and sends out a message to others asking them to attend the funeral. No one showed up. Nagara, Mizuho, Yamabiko, and the cats sincerely carried out the rituals for Nozomi's soul to rest in peace. Mizuho is not able to hold her tears and she sits by the beach crying her heart out while Nagara contemplates the memories he shared with Nozomi. A day after the funeral, Rajdhani showed up. He was seen in a completely different look with a huge parrot sitting on his head. He greeted his friends and paid respect to Nozomi's picture in a peculiar way. Wearing his old uniform back, he explains Nagara and Mizuho about his explorations. He tells them that he had been exploring the drifting worlds for ages, and though only 2 years have passed on the Ant Island, he had traveled for 2,000 years in the other worlds of the drifting realm. His old mobile phone was the evidence, as the year shown on the screen was 2,000 years ahead in the future. Not sure how he downloaded an update for 2 millennia. Nagara and Mizuho discussed their information regarding the drifting world and the plan to get out of it with Rajdhani. He happily agrees to help them out. Their plan is to build a rocket like the one used in the Apollo moon mission to fly into space. Rajdhani helps the duo in the construction of the rocket and the launching station using his gadgets and Mizuho's ability of Nyamazon. In the meantime, Nagara remembers one conversation he had with Nozomi. She had asked him what he would do if they met in the real world again after getting out of the drifting realm with no memory of the time they spent together. Nagara wasn't sure what to answer. Seeing his confusion, Nozomi said that whoever between the two happens to remember their time together should initiate friendship in the real world. Nagara tells her that if they go back to the real world, he'll probably do nothing different. He would not help the little bird that was lying in front of the school that day, and he would probably not try being friends with her anyway. Nozomi and Nagara had met for the first time on the rooftop on the day the drifting started. But Nozomi had first noticed him outside the school gate before, when he saw a little bird lying on the ground, but he simply ignored it and walked away. Now that Nozomi is gone, Nagara misses her and weeps out loud in front of Rajdhani. Rajdhani tells Nagara that though death is not possible in this realm, people can choose to stop existing, and perhaps Nozomi has done the same too. The construction is finally over. Nagara and Mizuho are getting ready to start their journey. Rajdhani decides to stay back on the island with the cats and Yamabiko as he wishes to explore the drifting realm more. Other students too wanted to stay back and had no desire to go back to the real world. They bid each other a heartfelt goodbye, as in the real world they'll not be as close as they were in this world. Mizuho had a hard time leaving her cats behind, as she might never be able to meet them again in the real world. As planned, the rockets take off with Nagara and Mizuho inside and Rajdhani watching them leave from a distance. When the rocket reached space, the duo left the rocket and entered another spacecraft. They placed the compass left behind by Nozomi inside the spacecraft and started moving accordingly. The way Nozomi could see a light in the distance, they believed that the compass does the same, pointing towards the light, which is their way out of the drifting world. After passing through several dimensions and drifting worlds, their spacecraft came to a stop as the compass stopped pointing. Both left the spacecraft with the compass in hand and a rope tied around their waists. They started running towards the direction of a bright light, crossing more drifting roads. They come across the headmaster, who threatens them not to leave, but they simply start running the opposite way. When they almost reach the end, their path was blocked by Asakaze. He stops them at first, but later leads the way when Nagara points out that escaping the drifting world was what Nozomi really wanted. Hearing this, he threw another compass towards Nagara. Both the compass fused with each other, creating a bright, blinding white light. And the next moment, the duo finds themselves in the real world. It is a rainy day at school after the summer vacation. The boy sitting next to Nagara shows a photo of Hawaii, telling him that he had spent his vacation there. Seeing the photo, Nagara exclaimed that it looked like the End Island. The other boy had no idea what he was talking about. It is clear that no one remembers about the drifting and their time on the island. Nagara waits for Mizuho outside the school gate. He calls out her name, but she fakes to not remember him. Nagara is taken aback, as he thought at least Mizuho would be able to remember him. After school, he goes to work at his part-time job at a restaurant. He made some mistakes and was scolded by the owner and given extra work to do. On his way home, he crosses paths with Nozomi at the subway station. She was with Asakaze. It seems like bro is so out of touch with reality. Going back to his apartment, he wonders if coming back to the real world was a good decision to make. He could have lived on for thousands of years in the drifting world with the special ability to create new worlds. But instead, he chose reality, where his future was uncertain and present is negligent. Our boy doesn't even have a girl in the real world, while he surely had a chance with Nozomi in the drifting world. But oh, she died there too. Days pass by with the usual routine of Nagara being a loner at school, being nagged by his employer, and coming back to his apartment alone. On a similar rainy day, Nagara and Mizuho cross paths at school again. This time, Mizuho calls out his name. Nagata is glad that there was someone who remembered the drifting. They both sit at the park and have a conversation after a long time. One of Mizuho's cats has died in the real world and she has not seen the others for a long time. She inquired about Nozomi, to which he admits that he has crossed paths with her a few times. After a while, they both part ways and promise to keep in touch. At the subway station, he meets Nozomi. She had a little bird in a nest in her hand. She explained to him how the little bird had lost her mother and was crying the whole night at the station. She asked him if he could give the bird a shelter, to which Nagata declined by saying that pets were not allowed where he lived. Nozomi runs back to Asakaze, who was standing behind, and starts to discuss the bird with him. This suggests Nagata's opinion of not changing the real world. He didn't help the bird lying in front of the school before, and he refuses to help the deserted little bird in the station too. Both the times, Nozomi is there to witness this. For an instance, Nagata was happy to meet and interact with Nozomi again, but he knew she didn't remember anything and thus he meant nothing to her. He remembers his promise made on the beach about striking a friendship with her again in case she forgets everything in the real world. But seeing her smiling and happy with Asakaze, he decides to break his promise. As he walks out of the station, the rain has stopped pouring. He walks towards his home with a smile on his face. He was now clear about the decision he made, the decision of choosing reality. His real life has just started and he himself is the one who can change his future. In the real world, his life is his hands in the truest sense. Well, that's a wrap folks. Catch ya on the flip side of the internet in my next video.